Well, it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigeria.
I don't blame her.
And I have with me in the studio journalist Charles Ideho and public affairs analyst Oladende Ario. Gentlemen, good morning. And thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Well, this morning, it seems the papers are yet to be here, but one of the issues...
The traffic out there is unwholesome.
The roads have been the major issue for some time now, and the Lagos State government has talked about, declaring a state of emergency on the state of the roads.
Let's see how that goes. I was expecting to see some action yesterday. I didn't see any.
Well, perhaps as the days go by, we'll definitely see action.
We will report him back to you.
Absolutely, definitely.
The driver got to my place at about 5:10. We did get here till about a few minutes ago.
Whoa,
and
I can imagine.
It's almost over past 6:30 now.
All right, let's get to the papers now. Federal government mulls new taxes to improve revenue generation. Again, budgets for 150 billion naira on subsidy payments. Budget cannot perform with 70% recurrent expenditure, experts. And to the front page of Nigeria News Direct, federal government to develop 30 years plan to boost economic growth, finance minister. And to the front page of the Daily Trust, federal government bans imports, exports through land borders. Experts say it will increase inflation, rise farmers hail policy. To the front page of the blueprint, PIB, Nigeria's oil reserves stagnate, hovers around 37.5 billion naira barrels for 12 years. Senate vows to pass the bill next year. And to the front page of the Vanguard, what Benin and Niger must do to get borders reopened, federal government. All right, we'll be looking at the story on the front page of the Daily Times, gentlemen. Federal government mulls new taxes to improve revenue generation. And the subtitles that we have under that headline, we have again budgets 450 billion naira for subsidy payment. And then we have budget cannot perform with 70% recurrent expenditure, experts there. Now, after, Charles, you're shaking your head. The federal government is looking at improving the GDP from 8% to 15%. And it's looking at, multiple taxation now. Although they are not specific on which areas that will be taxed. But then we already know of the other areas that we're going to be having taxes. Now it's looking at improving the GDP and it's looking at multiple taxation, improving the GDP from 8% to 15%. And, as the budget is, I wonder how this comes to you, how Nigerians are going to survive under the burden of all of these multiple taxes. I'll start with you.
Well, for me, it's a no-no, because we seem to be going towards the lowest of the low now. We're looking at the people already impoverished, and then they are now being emboldened with additional taxation. And when I say impoverished, for over a long time, each household has been living as local government on its own, providing their own power supply, providing water, providing education, because public schools are not there for everybody, and so on. Now, when you now begin to increase progressively taxation, you are going to be pushing people into regression. Why? The little funds that they have to manage their lives is not going to be taken from them. Especially when, for almost a year now, the workers have been battling to earn the so-called minimum wage.
How do they even survive
under this? And that minimum wage, if you remember, like I told you, it's not going to. It's a wage that will take nobody to the bus stop, talk less to their homes. So people are going to be having tougher times ahead. And this is apart from other activities of the government, which is going to bring inflation. So I don't now know how we want to go through this, especially with a budget that it's taking very little, for capital expenditure, and the bulk is for recurring and loan servicing. Again, we're having a budget that is marginally being financed through loans again. This is not, all these are not, I may not have an economics degree, but for me, we're not going to progress anywhere.
Charles, lend your voice to this issue. I mean, how sustainable, because the government is looking at sustainable ways of generating income to fund the budget. How sustainable is this taxation process?
Well, first, let's look at taxation. Taxation is an integral part of
any
revenue,
society.
Yeah, in the society, and we can't be living in an isolation. But there are rules, okay, that you must put in place for you to have a sustainable taxation system, regime, if you like, okay. But you must ensure that you put the horse before the cart, because it's the horse that will drive the cart. Yeah. But as we have now, it seems as if we are putting the cart before and then the cart cannot drive the horse. So what do I mean by that? The reason is that if we want to look at Lagos State, let's use Lagos State template. Okay, when Asiwaju came in 1999, and particularly when the federal allocation of Lagos State was seized, they had to employ the services of tax experts who were able to come up with a sustainable tax system for Lagos State. That's why the revenue base of Lagos State shored up. And because they provided jobs, they provided infrastructure that was able to drive the Lagos society. In that case, people were voluntarily able to pay taxes because they had jobs. And you know what this starts, when you have a job, for instance, and the taxes are usually deducted from the source. That's why you have the payee and all that. Yes. But when you have a system where you have a high percentage of unemployment, there's going to be difficult. I don't know how you're going to drive that policy to a sustainable level. Why am I so? Because what you introduce that if government spends money, okay, let me use K2, the K2 as an example. Government wants to build about 500 housing units in K2, for instance. It's going to massively employ people, the artisans, the people who are going to be selling food, and all this. Money will be spent. There will be money in the hands of people. Yes, so getting taxes from them will not be a problem. But when you don't provide jobs, the infrastructure is not there to drive the economy.
Because
then taxes will be a problem.
From the budget, from the look of the budget, 70%, like he rightly pointed out,
is going to record it.
So how do you now make the provisions when you just have a lean budget for that? And then the
recurrent cannot build this because it's consumption.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is the capital budget, capital expenditure. They're supposed to drive. I mean, supposed to engage a flurry of activities.
Just a paltry 30%.
Yeah, that's why I say that you can't drive these taxes, this taxation system. It will be difficult for us to sustain it. It will be difficult.
If government should sit somewhere and assume things are okay with the people, they now impose taxes. Capability and ability to pay will end up making nonsense of the projections. Because you cannot take from me what I don't have. I have to make money before I can be taxed. So the question is, are people making money?
They are not.
They are not. Because we have a largely unemployed and non-profitably employed people in their large numbers. So for me, they should have been looking at those situations before now saying, okay,
but what options are available to the government now, in this case, to generate funds?
I'll give an example. In the last 10 years or more, it's been deficit financing.
Absolutely.
For all our budgets. Can't we stop somewhere and say enough is enough? Okay? And let the principle of common sense take charge. Number two, we have a budget where education, for example, takes 45 billion. 40, right? And over 150 goes to National Assembly. How do you grow with that margin? It doesn't make sense. Now, people are clamoring for minimum wage, as agreed by the government with the labor. It's not becoming realistic. It's becoming increasingly unrealistic. If you listen to Governor Fayemi of the state,
he said that any strike will be an exercise in futility.
Yes. But how will you convince me that they will not be able to pay when National Assembly is buying vehicles with 5.5 billion naira? You see, these are indications that will not make these things work. But we are becoming increasingly conscious and aware.
Can be
No, the options. The options are.
When we say options, we must first of all look at our spending pattern. What are we spending on? One thing that's continued to worry Nigerians is the issue of allocation to Aso Rock Clinic, for instance. Every year, billions, 2, 3, get allocated to Aso Rock Clinic. But the president, the family, and most of the people there, they still go abroad for medical, for their medicals. So why are we doing? And you see waste everywhere. We should first of all look at what we are spending money on. We must begin to cut costs. That should be the focus. We must. I mean, look at it. It's only in government circles that they buy photocopier, computer, printers every year. These are not consumables. They are things that should last for years. I have used the same laptop for over 10 years. Wow. My printer is over 10 years. My computer is the same thing. So we should bring that same.
You're not in government.
Yeah, we should bring. It's only government that changes air conditioner.
You're not in government like you
so
just
you understand.
I can't understand.
But there are options. There are indeed options.
Really?
But these options are very few. And the problem is that we may not have the political will to drive these options.
All right, let's leave it at that point, gentlemen. Thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much, David. And of course, it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers today. I have with me in the studio journalist Charles Ideho and public affairs analyst Oladende Ariyo. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we look at the News Direct this morning. The headline says here, federal government to develop 30-year plans to boost economic growth, says finance minister. And we move now to the Daily Times, and it says 2020 budget, federal government moves new taxes to improve revenue generation. Again, budget 450 billion naira for subsidy payments. Budget cannot perform with 70% recurrent expenditure, says experts. The blueprint says PIB, Nigeria's oil reserves stagnant, hovers around 37.5 billion barrels for 12 years. Senate vows to pass bill next year. The Daily Trust says here, federal government bans import-exports through land borders. Experts kick say it will increase inflation. Rice farmers hail policy. The Vanguard is saying here this morning what Benin and Niger must do to get borders reopened, says federal government. Our neighbors must meet commitments signed several years ago, says finance minister. No imports, exports through land borders, says Custom Boss Ali. Adds border shut down to enhance national security. Nigerians lament closure as prices of food items soars. The Guardian is saying here how economy may suffer under total border closure. Millions may be jobless over ill-timed policy. Action in nation's best interest, says government. There's no hunger in Nigeria, says minister. This day newspaper says all benchmark lowered over expected crude glut, says finance minister. Defense, education, police lead in sectorial proposals. Crude price slumps below $60 over US-China trade deal. The Daily Sun says here, as Pakistanis, South Koreans are deported, federal government orders total border closure. Joint security operatives seize 1.4 billion naira items, says CG. The Nation newspaper is saying here, why borders won't reopen for now. That's according to the federal government, and the writer says illegal arms, dangerous drugs no longer come in. All right, we'll look at this story in the News Direct. It says the federal government to develop 30 years plan to boost economic growth. That's according to the finance minister. 30-year plan to boost economic growth, looking at the fact that we always have successive governments who come around and change policies. Is this feasible?
Of all I care, it's another journey into nowhere. Okay. I wasn't a small boy when there was so much noise about millennial goals, okay, the MDGs. We left from there, moved to Vision 2020. 2020 is just a few months away from here. How well have we done? Have we achieved Vision 2020? With those visions? I mean, they sounded fantastic, they were good, they were applauded, and people were ready to give their all to make it work. But like I said now, how well have we done? How much of the visions have been achieved or accomplished? We've never been lacking in ideas both beautiful, workable, and of course grandiose, that are not even practical. I don't think we should now go back to that same level. First of all, you must know where you are coming from to know where you are before you can begin to project into the future. Why don't we go back to all the previous short-term, medium-term, Marshall plans and everything, review them, see where we have achieved whatever measure of success, see what went wrong, bring solutions, suggestions that will move us forward from there, instead of now coming up with a new set of visions.
All right.
I mean, we can't continue this way. Development is not a piecemeal thing. It's a process. You must start from somewhere, proceed and grow and continue.
Let's hear from Charles now. Charles, what do you think?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with it. When we were growing up those days, he mentioned the past. I grew up in the 80s, late 70s, and in the 80s. And I grew up to know that we used to have 10-year rolling plan or development plan. They used to have it in those days. I grew up knowing that, even though I wasn't that old, but I knew there was a 10-year rolling plan which we used to have. What it helps government to, first of all, you talked about policy change and so on, but government is a continuum. Yeah. This is Nigeria. No government can. What you need that if you project it to the future, it will help you to now say, okay, we'll have something to latch onto. But if you just sit down and say, okay, every year, let me plan for this year. You don't plan for tomorrow, don't plan for that. How are you going to grow as a country?
But federal government, this is a plan, a 30-year master plan proposed by the finance minister.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, after working on this plan, will there be an arrangement where, as any government coming, it takes over the plan and runs with it? It's a vision.
Yeah, okay, look, it didn't work in the past. Does not mean we should continue to do it in the past.
Let me ask you, in the past, when there was a 10-year successive plan,
there was a succession.
There was a succession.
Yeah, that's right.
That was because governments were coming in to take over and move on with it. But in this situation, we have governments who are coming from different political parties.
Yeah, that's right.
So how will it work?
What we need to look at, I don't think there will be any responsible and responsive government that is succeeding another one that will see something that would work for this country. I want to throw into the trash basket.
Is that not what we've been having?
Maybe I should remind him.
No. You see, I don't want to. I quite understand your fears.
And they are genuine.
No, hold on. They are genuine.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying first is that we also owe this country responsibility to say, okay, this thing didn't happen, it didn't work in the past, but can we chart a new course? To say, okay, let's project into the future. I mean, sorry, all the countries in the world that are working, they have projection to, some people even project into 50 years. Look at Dubai. I was in Dubai for 4 years, okay? What Dubai is enjoying now, they had in place long time ago. So all they need to do is to look at it, what do we have for this for those years? They go and this,
what necessitated that in Dubai?
Say again?
What allowed that in Dubai?
No, okay, but you may say over there, they have a monarchy. Okay, where you don't have change of government and so on. But then, what I'm saying first is that whether we have a government where you have change of baton every 4 years, but we need to project into the future. For us to just say, okay, we just live by today, it's not going to help us to grow as a country.
Charles, I am not going to, I never said we should live by the day. Okay, that's a blind man's approach. All I've said is this: we cannot continue doing things the same way and expect,
so we should not make projections
and expect a different result.
Is that what are you just asking?
Our previous projections.
The previous is gone.
How well have they delivered value into the life of the people?
That is gone.
You cannot. If you don't have a past, if you don't know your past, then your present and future, they are doomed. You must know what brought you to where you are.
Okay,
how you got to where you are.
We are charting a new course.
When you identify that, we can't be charting new courses every time.
Okay, we should be stagnated.
Nobody has said that. They're not getting the point.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, let's identify why the previous courses, visions, and charts, why they failed. If they had worked, we would not be where we are.
Okay, have you seen the details of this projection, Ariyo?
I'm not going to wait for projections. It won't be anywhere different from the previous. Why? The same characters who have been in government in the last 30 years or more are still very visible. Okay?
So what should we do?
Nothing has changed.
Okay, let me ask.
So
what should we do in place of this 30-year projection?
I'll tell you now. Let's go back. You said rolling plans.
Yes.
I even forgot that. We rolled into nothingness. Let's go back and identify why those plans failed.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Then where they worked, we amplify that. Then where we know the gaps, we fill the gaps. If bring forward strategies that will bring correction.
Arillo is not in government. He may not be aware that some of these things may have been taken care of.
All right.
He may not be aware. He is saying we should first of all look at why they have not worked.
So what will you suggest now?
Say it again.
What will you suggest?
I would suggest that, thankfully, this platform is another good reason, a good platform for us to begin to tell government what to do. He had fear. The fear is that what we had in the past didn't work. But we're charting a new course. Right. This new course is for us to insist on them, making sure they stay with the letters of that project.
And
then we move on.
Gentlemen, we have to move at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's also move on.
It's been a fruitful discussion, but thank you so much. All right, of course, that's the newspaper review. Of course, you are watching TVC Breakfast, and we're streaming live on YouTube. You can connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag TVC Breakfast.
It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio journalist Charles Idaho and public affairs analyst Oladeyinde Ario. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Let's head straight to the newspapers now, and I begin with the News Direct. Federal government to develop a 30 years plan to boost economic growth, Finance Minister. To the front page of the Daily Times 2020 budget, federal government mulls new taxes to improve revenue generation. Again, budgets for 150 billion naira for subsidy payment. Budget cannot perform with 70% recurrent expenditure, expert. On the front page of the blueprint, PIB, Nigeria's oil reserves stagnate, hovers around 37.5 billion naira. Barrels for 12 years. Senate vows to pass bill next year. And to the Daily Trust now, federal government bans imports, exports through land borders. Experts say it will increase inflation. Rice farmers hail policy. On the Vanguard, what Benin, Niger must do to get borders reopened, federal government. Our neighbors must meet commitments signed several years ago, Finance Minister. No imports, export through land borders, Customs boss Ali adds border shutdown to enhance national security. Nigerians lament closure as prices of food items soar. To The Guardian now, how economy may suffer under total border closure. Millions may be jobless over ill-timed policy. Action in nation's best interest, says government. There's no hunger in Nigeria, says minister. We'll be looking at this story shortly. And to the front page of this day newspaper, oil benchmark lowered over expected crude glut, says finance minister. Defense, education, police lead in sectoral proposals. Crude price slumps below $60 over US-China trade deal. And on the Daily Sun, on the front page of the Daily Sun, as Pakistanis, South Koreans are deported, federal government orders total border closure. Joint security operatives seize 1.4 billion naira items, says CG. And then finally on the front page of the Nation newspaper, why borders won't reopen for now by federal government. Illegal arms, dangerous drugs no longer coming. Arrested people and items at the borders. We have 317 suspected smugglers, 146 illegal migrants. We have so much details breaking down of information here, but we'll look at that story from the front page of the Guardian newspapers and perhaps dovetail into the front page of other stories, talking about this story in terms of the border closure. Let's begin here where it says that about millions may be jobless over this policy of the border closure. The government has said that this was done in the interest of the nation, especially when it comes to issues of security. We're trying to tackle issues of security. But now reports are saying that this policy is going to cause a lot of damage in terms of many being jobless, and the policy is ill-timed. Charles.
Ill-time. I keep hearing ill-time. What time is right? For you to bring a policy deliberately so to help increase productivity level of the country.
Do we have the structures in place before these borders were closed that will help improve productivity?
Yes, of course, because these anchored borrowers and all that, these are structures where you are.
How effective has it been, Charles?
No, but it's been
monitoring this thing.
Ariyo and I, we were talking before we came on there that the the quantity of rice being produced locally, I mean, before 2015, it was below 5 metric tons. Now we are doing close to 10 metric tons. Yeah. I don't have the actual figure, but I know
I'm
as at 2016, it was about 5.8. No, as at 2017, it was 5.8 metric tons, but it wasn't so before 2017. So some things have been done, but I do know that it will definitely result in job losses. But the question is, those jobs, were they legitimate jobs?
Of course, there are people who do legitimate jobs around the borders.
But look, what I'm saying for that, those borders, those smugglers that we're bringing in, and no, hold on. That means,
I doubt if that is what the issue is here when it comes to jobs.
We will look at it holistically.
Absolutely.
Look, whatever will hurt private pockets, I will not go for it. But if it is in the general interest of the country, where, for instance, look at in Brazil, for instance, I can't remember whether it was Lula da Silva that brought about deliberate policy that moved about 30 millions of Brazilians from the lower level to the middle class. Why? Because there was a deliberate effort, and that's the policy the government had brought. If you shut the borders, rice will not come in. You will now have the local production increasing, and then you will now be raising people from that portion to the middle class. So what is wrong with that?
I like his pessimism.
No, pessimism or optimism? Good.
Optimism.
Call it optimism.
I like your optimism, but unfortunately, I beg to differ.
Okay.
It's all right.
At the point that Colonel Ahmed Ali was appointed to head the customs, we were saying that they should have looked, from within the customs and find a mind that could take charge. We are looking at building strong institutions, not strong individuals.
Absolutely.
That this is happening while it's still the head of the customs reflects a failure of the system. Number one. Number two.
Really?
Yes. Number two, it is true that illegal arms come in through the borders. But my challenge is this. I know of a fact that we have over 1,521 on
almost about 1,900.
Now, if you are talking about closing the manned borders, what happens with the unmanned borders? As we are sitting here, take it or leave it, activities are still going on there.
Absolutely.
But has reduced.
Excuse me. When you say reduce, what parameter or
minimum level?
What benchmark do you have to give me that assumption?
Why are we saying rice is scarce?
Excuse me.
Why?
Leave rice out of this thing.
That is the staple.
Why are we saying that turkey is scarce?
Let him learn.
Okay, go ahead. Because,
Charles,
yes.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Local production capacity.
Go ahead. Let me go ahead.
I can tell you that in the area of supporting the growth of rice, government has done better than before. They've done very well. Again, the local production capacity has increased. We have enough rice to feed Nigerians here.
But people are groaning. That is too expensive.
Nigerians collaborate with some foreigners to ferry our rice out of Nigeria, get them, outside the border, rebagged, and labeled from Thailand or from wherever, and then now bring them in to be sold as imported rice. That is pure economic sabotage. To resolve that, we don't need to close the borders.
All right, quickly.
Okay, then let me also wait.
Quickly, because we have no time.
Let me also tell you that we have the capacity to feed ourselves. All we need to do, those two you are saying they will be jobless, let them go back to the village.
If you don't close the borders, you're taking away then you do not make it to go to the farm.
Is that the solution?
Let them go and be engaged on the farm.
But if you don't shut the borders, will they look elsewhere?
Of course.
No, they won't look elsewhere.
There are enough programs.
He's coming to what I said earlier. Because of the closure of the border, that's why they now have another alternative to go back to the land.
You are now saying,
but there are going to be different alternatives.
Exactly.
They could form a security challenge even within.
No, but he just said that they can move to the land.
Who are the people who are jobless? Smugglers and their hands are the ones that are jobless, not those who are legally, logically, and
employed.
But I think working with Economists 101, I think it will help us to show up our project in Nigeria.
The Economist Charles. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on TVC Breakfast. Thank you.